Hi, everybody, and happy Sunday. When I was 6, my teacher introduced us to a series online I absolutely love called Borneo from Below and produced by Scubazoo. A few months later, at the Rainforest Festival, I met the host of this same series, Aaron Dukoski. And guess what? Today I am very excited to chat with one of the co-founders of Scubazoo. Good morning, Jason Isley.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm very good. How are you? I know you are recovering from pretty bad back pain.
Yeah, feeling much better now. So we finally got this to happen, which is great. So I love what you're doing. So
Thank you.
I'm very supportive and yeah, happy to chat.
Thank you. I'm glad you're feeling better. You are not only the co-founder of Scubazoo, but also a very experienced photographer and videographer who is working all around the world for the company. Was it a dream job as a child to film or photograph the world while traveling?
Not at all. I would say I had a typical sort of childhood in the UK. And when I say that, I mean sort of going out with my brother and friends, bird watching at the weekend, playing around at the lakes, fishing. So there was always a natural history sort of interest. And I did play around with a camera when I was probably around your age, actually. My grandfather passed away, and my dad had his old camera equipment. So I used that. I tried to take pictures of birds, which is one of the most difficult things. So I would say when I was young, I had an interest in wildlife and natural history, but never dreamt of diving, filming, and photographing underwater. That came much later in life.
What are the main qualities needed to be a good underwater photographer, apart from a mastered buoyancy, I assume?
You've got to be a competent diver. And one of the problems these days is that it's so easy now to learn to dive. A lot of people do it like on their holidays or backpacking. And the first thing they do is pick up a GoPro or put their iPhone in an underwater housing and think that they're an underwater photographer, and their buoyancy is completely useless. And they start trashing the reef. So yeah, your diving skills is number one. And it's quite easy when you get so consumed into taking pictures underwater, you start forgetting about looking at your gauge and how deep you are. And so, yeah, you've got to have that awareness and be a good diver. And then sort of after that, it's learning your camera and knowing, what does, it sounds silly, but knowing what does what on your camera, what the aperture does, what the shutter speed does, and being able to control the light and understanding. A lot of people just get a camera and off they go taking pictures, put everything on auto, and they come back with okay photos. But if you really want to improve, you've got to start using manual and really understanding what controls on the camera actually do to the image.
What is your best souvenir so far while shooting underwater? I know you've been to some amazing places. You've been to the Bahamas.
Yeah. Bahamas a couple of times. Yeah, I mean, Bahamas is one of the best shark diving locations in the world. So I love the Bahamas. It's great for lemon sharks, tiger sharks. It's difficult to say. I have so many fond memories of different trips and for different reasons, like, Tonga, swimming with humpbacks is one of my favorites. When you're playing with a 4-meter calf humpback, it takes a lot to top that. But yeah, I think, obviously working with David Attenborough is another one. And yeah, sharks. I mean, I do love sharks. So South Australia for great whites, and yeah, Bahamas, tiger sharks. When you've got a tiger shark, bumping your camera. It's a very exciting feeling.
I've only seen a reef shark, and you're making me jealous because you've seen pretty much every single type of shark in the whole ocean, everywhere. What is your favorite thing to photograph underwater?
Oh, I get asked this. Octopus and cuttlefish are definitely high up on the list. I love their behavior, their intelligence. The family is so diverse. You've got tiny little creatures like the hairy octopus, blue ring octopus, and then you've got the giant octopus that lives in Canada and the colder waters. They're incredible subjects. There's a great documentary that came out recently that shows just how intelligent and how interactive they can be. So they're definitely high up on my list. I think sharks, any species of sharks, and humpbacks. Humpbacks really have a lot of character. And yeah, they're another subject, like the calves like to interact. So it's an incredible experience when you have a wild creature wanting to interact with you underwater. It's very difficult to beat that experience. But what you have experienced so far, what is your favorite subject?
I don't know. I'm bad at all subjects. My favorite thing to see is sharks, but they're so fast. Like, especially reef sharks, because I usually see reef sharks. They're so fast that it's not really the easiest thing to photograph, so it can't really be my favorite. I don't know. Maybe nudibranchs are like, there's so many of them though. They're so common, but they're the only thing that stays still. Scubazoo is one of the largest Southeast Asia dedicated natural history filming and photography company involving land, air, and sea. How did it start and why in Malaysia?
Okay, it started in around 1995, 96. So yeah, almost 25 years ago was when it started on Sipadan. And basically, it started off just as a tourist dive filming company. So basically we had a couple of people living on Sipadan when resorts were there, and we would film the guests just on their normal dives, and we would sell VHS tapes, and so that's how we started on Sipadan. And then we opened a similar sort of studio in Lang Lang, and then the Maldives. And as we expanded the studios in different locations, we got to meet a lot more people, and some people were involved in TV broadcast. BBC Really Wild Show came to Sipadan from the UK probably in the second year we were running, and that was our first ever TV broadcast filming. Nick Baker was the presenter, and we filmed him diving around Sipadan, and then just gradually we got a reputation with the broadcast companies in the UK, and over that sort of the process of 2 years, we just got to know so many people in the broadcast industry in the UK, and sort of word got about that there was this company here that could cater for underwater filming and production management in Sabah and in the whole of Borneo.
I definitely understand why you started in Sipadan. Sipadan is a great place to start. Have you ever had to decline a project because it was a total mission impossible?
No, we've sort of said yes to everything. When a project comes up and it's quite a challenge, or there's a sort of small danger involved, that's what sort of makes it more exciting.
Scubazoo also has various series on a platform called Scubazoo TV. Why did you decide to start this channel, and what can we find on it?
So SE, we call it SE TV for short, but yeah, Scubazoo TV. basically we got frustrated as a company and as individuals. We are quite conservation minded. We wanted to tell the true story. A lot of productions we were working on were pure natural history. They're called Blue Chip, which is what David Attenborough has produced for many years with BBC. And basically, it's all natural history. Everything is amazing and everything is perfect. And it gives an impression that there is nothing wrong. And sort of, the reality is a stark, opposite of that. It's horrendous what is going on, how much damage is being done, plastic pollution, acidification. And so, we got frustrated in working on projects and productions that just weren't willing to tell that side of the story. And so we started SETV as an online channel. We started off with Borneo Ocean Diaries, which was Bertie, who you mentioned at the beginning. And basically it was him just living on my ball, telling stories from photographic ideas to weird subjects like the two-headed nudibranch, and then touching on the conservation stories like the seahorse, plastic pollution, and not making everything about conservation, because that's the difficult part of making this type of program. People don't want to be told bad news for half an hour or even for 5 minutes. You've got to make it entertaining, you've got to make it educational, and then you've just got to gently tell them about conservation and really show that you've got to give ideas and things that people can do themselves as well. You've got to show some hope, and you've got to give people something that they can then take away and maybe do themselves. It's not just an underwater channel, it's terrestrial and underwater, and but everything we do, we try and spin in some conservation.
Scubazoo has worked with a variety of amazing people like Bear Grylls, Stephen Fry, and David Attenborough. Attenborough.
Yes.
What did you learn from working side by side with them?
Oh, I think when you start working on the really high-end documentaries or programs, the professionalism, that's what really starts. You start noticing, everything is really a lot more strict in, the time scales, the filming. And so, you really start to get regimented in the way you do things as well. And then you get a lot more accomplished when things are a lot more organized. But, the cameramen that are on these projects, that have been in, working in this industry for 20, 30, sometimes 40 years, just sitting down and having dinner or having a drink in the evening and chatting to them, when you really pick up, just little nitbits of advice and you're learning off their experience. That's the really useful things.
Is there anyone you admire that you would like to work with in the future?
Yeah, there's two photographers. David Doubilet is probably one. He's probably the best underwater photographer in the world. He's been working with National Geographic magazine for decades. Working on a project with him would probably be, my biggest ambition. And there's another photographer who I have had the pleasure to work with, but would more than happy to work with again, and that's Tom Peschuk, who is another National Geographic photographer, and he's quite remarkable doing underwater photography. His skill at coming up with just different techniques on sort of regular subjects is just incredible. So those two, I would love to work with again.
Um, After 20 years diving and filming around the world, is there any dream spot you have on your bucket list that you still haven't visited?
Oh, I have, yes, the Galapagos. Two locations, well, three. Galapagos, Cocos, and French Polynesia. Three places that I really need to get to before I die.
Scubazoo not only works on various projects, they also provide education through various ways, like worksheets with fun games and fact files on different animals, the series I talked about earlier, and books. Why is educating and awareness so important to you?
Basically, I think trying to change people's minds after a certain age is very difficult. And so, the younger generation are the ones that are going to be the next politicians, the next teachers, environmentalists. So the more we can get across to them, the young people in school, I think that's what's really going to make the big difference. As these years go on, hopefully it's the younger politicians that are the ones that are making the change and doing things for nature, for conservation, rather than just for money. And the corruption is everywhere. It's not just in certain countries, and unfortunately, the older generation and the older politicians, they're just not doing enough to change what's happening. And so hopefully, it's still there by the time the younger generation take over. But they've got to be the ones that have this knowledge.
I'm very grateful to have one of the copies of your very own book, which you gave to me.
Small Blue World.
For those who have not seen it, it's a lovely and very well constructed book filled with real images taken by him, obviously, on which he portrayed a whole human world invading the ocean using figurines. How did you come up with the idea of bringing figurines underwater?
I was aware and followed a French photographer called Christopher Buffoli that took photos of these miniature people. They were about 1 centimeter tall. And he had a book where he placed them on food. And so his whole concept was these little people interacting with normal sized food, which is fantastic. It's worth checking out his stuff. And then I came across a second photographer using the same miniatures called Slinkachoo. And he was a UK photographer. And he would set up a scene with miniature people in the street. So it's like street art. He would photograph it with 3 different lenses. So 3 different views of the miniatures, like a really tight shot, a wide, sort of mid-range shot, and then he'd have a wide shot where you could hardly see the miniatures. You could see like the street, but you knew where they were. And he was using, it was his images that really sparked my interest in setting up scenes underwater. I found a couple of shops in Singapore, bought some miniatures, came back to KK, and I took them out to the marine park here. And I took probably about 4 or 5 pictures. And then I just posted them online. And so that's how it started. Was sort of the very beginning. And these pictures, like the likes was crazy compared to whatever else I'd done. And there was various comments about, this is amazing. And what are you going to do with this? It had a wide appeal. And so that's when I sort of started to think about where I could push it, where was this going to go? And so that's where the book came about. And as I started taking more pictures and thinking about the conservation pictures, the whole story of climate change, the planet being flooded, and the little people having to live underwater, that's where it all came about. And so therefore the chapters of the invasion, because humans are generally an aggressive species by nature. So they go in fighting with the soldiers and the tanks. And then they realize the second chapter is harmony. So they realize they've got to live side by side with the marine life. And then the last chapter is the future, where they realize that the underwater world is just as polluted as what it is on land, and therefore it depicts certain things that are happening underwater. So plastic pollution, fish bombing, shark finning, and so that was the evolution of a very sort of crazy idea and concept, and basically the boredom of shooting macro, all the way to basically the book concept.
Do you have a favorite shot? And if so, why is it your favorite shot?
So my favorite pictures in the book are probably the ones that spent the most time. The hot air balloon is definitely one of my favorites, because from the beginning, even, as the book progressed, I would never have dreamt of taking a hot air balloon underwater. And so, yeah, there it is. And so, from the idea to creating the concept and then putting it in place was such a massive process. I bought the hot air balloon online. When it was delivered, it was like any plastic model kit, like Airfix kit. It came in pieces, so I had to glue and put it together. So that took a long time to do. I remember doing kits like that when I was a kid. Now my eyesight is not as good as that, so like trying to glue all these bits was highly frustrating. And then basically coming up with the idea of the jellyfish and where to shoot that. And so that was shot in Palau, Jellyfish Lake, just before the jellyfish disappeared. It was definitely one of my favorite images, and it was one that sort of took the longest process, from getting the idea to sketching it to building the balloon, and then actually making it happen in the lake. So definitely that's one of my favorites.
I do like this shot. It's pretty much the only time you'll see humans fixing up a shark.
Yeah, it is one of my favorites as well. It came out, you sort of have this idea and you're not sure if it'll work or not, and that one really came out. You've got this dead shark, fins missing, and they're there to try and help, and it's too late. It's that was actually all the conservation ones I like, because the message is quite clear. It was a fun project.
What are you hoping to do in the future with this book? Make a series or make a sequel?
We wanted to do an animated version of the book with little people, so real footage underwater, but these little people coming in and doing just like what they're doing in the book. And we just haven't got around to doing that yet. That's going to take a lot of time. Animation is quite expensive to do. But I'd like to do, I was always planning to do a series, a sequel to Small Blue World, and have a Small Blue World 2. What I'm probably going to do now, what I'm thinking, is a second edition of the first book. So keep it as it is, but expand on each chapter, and possibly have a new chapter of the future. So, once they realize that it's so polluted where they're living, they have to go and search for somewhere else underwater. And here on land, that somewhere else would be space, and going up to the moon, or into space somewhere else. And obviously they can't do that now. So the space underwater would be going into the abyss, into the deep or the dark. And so I plan to have some astronauts exploring some of the dark areas underwater. So that's there to be done. But again, you know, we don't have any budget or finance for it. So, you know, when I get time to do that, we'll probably be in between projects when we're no longer in lockdown. You know, what I can do in lockdown is make the plans and the sketches, because I normally sketch each image before I go and photograph it. So I can do the planning.
What is Scubazoo's next project?
Ooh, we are about to start Audio Ocean Diaries. Once lockdown ends here in Sabah, the team will be out filming Audio Ocean Diaries, and that will be on SCTV hopefully by the middle of the year, maybe before, if we can get out and film in February. And basically, it's an extension of Borneo Jungle Diaries, where Alex Alexander took over where Birdie left off and went back to DGFC to follow some of the researchers based there. She's now going to go underwater. And so I can't say too much because we don't want to give everything away. But it's going to be very exciting. It's not just going to be a normal diving series. So it'll be very different to From Below series. It will be quite serious with various researchers. But there'll be a lot of fun in there as well. And yeah, I think it's going to really appeal to people here in Sabah and internationally as well. And also to a lot of young people as well, because Alex is quite young herself, and so yeah, we're gonna be pushing her through some adventures.
What is your next project?
My next project will be probably out in Mabul, Sipadan, which is for another production company in the UK, and which I can't say anything about, unfortunately. You have to sign NDAs, non-disclosure forms with all these companies when doing things. But yeah, it will be 2 to 3 weeks based out in Mabul, Dive in Sipadan, and also around Mabul as well. So yeah, that will be, hopefully I'll be back in the office in February, and sort of planning some other things for later in the year. But my next shoot will be heading over to the East Coast.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. I absolutely love your work, and I hope we will be able to see each other soon again and dive together one day.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to diving with you and giving you some tips underwater on photography. And yeah, it'll be fun.
I wish you a fast recovery. Take care.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.
That's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for watching. Do make sure to go check out their website and follow them on social media to show your support. I'm sure you'll be as amazed as I was to see their incredible work. See you all next time. Bye!